Well, why are companies continuing to invest in central Indiana, and why does it continue to be so hard to fill manufacturing jobs in the state? Well, KSM Location Advisors CEO Tim Cook, also President Katie Culp, they're here to weigh in on those issues and a lot more in this month's Eye on Economic Development segment. And welcome, as always, to the show.
Hi, Gary.
Thanks, a lot of concern looking forward. People continue to say, is it a recession? Is it a slowdown in the offing? But we're continuing to see companies invest in Indiana in general, in particular here in central Indiana. What's driving that, Katie?
You know, I think what we've been experiencing a lot with our clients, and I think is true at the state and local economic development level, is companies and leadership are expecting the economy to tighten up or worse. And so they're really trying to rush to get everything completed by the end of the year, not knowing what 2020 is going to bring. And so I would strongly suspect that this is we're going to continue to see this through the end of the year.
Interesting. What, Tim, the companies that most recently announced, Ingram Micro with a big investment in Hendricks County, Gordon Food Service in Westfield, a lot of jobs there, distribution. Also LifeNet Health in Hendricks County in Plainfield, a healthcare life sciences company. So there's diversity in the investment.
It's really exciting, and it's a credit to the state. It's a credit to Central Indiana that you have that diversity. These are really big projects. And to Katie's point, we've been talking about the recession a lot over the last quarter. This seems to be pretty strong evidence that at least in Indiana, we're not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Do you get a general sense as we're heading into 2020? We don't know what's going to happen, obviously, an election year, of course, which will play potentially on things as well. But how Indiana's positioned economic development-wise heading into next year to 2020?
I think they're pretty strong. I think the economy is more diverse than it was during the last recession. Indiana is still a very manufacturing-heavy state, so when recession does hit, we will feel that effect of it. But I think we'll be able to absorb the shock of it a little better than we did last time.
Yeah, manufacturing continues to drive the Indiana economy, the most manufacturing-intensive state in the country. Katz Sapper Miller out with an annual manufacturing survey. And as you look at some of the issues and concerns and big takeaways, employment, the ability to get people to work, the unemployment rate in Indiana dropped to, I think, 3.2% last year, the lowest since 2000. Challenges for these manufacturers to find people.
Yeah, what we're seeing is that the workforce is shrinking a bit in that area, and the manufacturers are having to come up with their own solutions on how to address that. And so one of the ways they're doing that is automating more, not so much with the goal of replacing people, but because they can't find people, they're having to come up with technological solutions.
Yeah, and one of the other things I thought interesting out of that and the whole automation issue is the kind of psychological or mental stress that's putting on people, whether it's a warehouse or manufacturing operation, worried that their jobs will be taken by a robot.
You're competing with robots, literally, in some of these cases, and it's a physical stress, it's mental stress. I think it's a real thing. When we talk about automation, we talk about jobs being eliminated, but we don't talk about the actual pressures that it puts on some of the employees.
Yeah.
And it's a reflection, too, I think, of there are very small margins, especially in logistics and distribution. And so the speed in which they operate is critical. And so that's putting the pressure on the workforce. And I think there were some reports out recently that talked about that being disproportionately non-Caucasian workers who are being impacted by some of this. So just the stressful environments of, you look around our state, we've got a lot of distribution, and that's the day-to-day reality for many of our residents.
Any sense on how Indiana's position in the manufacturing sector? Certainly, automotive industry continues to change, but a lot of big investment from GM, from Toyota, Honda, and others in the state. How Indiana's position from a manufacturing standpoint?
Yeah, I think this workforce issue continues to be a big problem. Obviously, the governor has invested a lot of political capital, a lot of money into it. We're still hearing our clients at least, but companies talking about the struggles of filling positions. So I hope we're in a better position, but I don't know where we will be until we actually have to deal with some of those headwinds.
Yeah, and certainly from Toyota in Princeton up to automakers like General Motors, we'll see how the strike impacts ultimately once that gets settled as well. Moving on to another issue just now beginning to unfold, I guess, in Indiana, sports betting and mobile sports betting. Thoughts on the impact that that's going to have on Indiana? Indiana actually kind of taking a leadership role
Right.
ahead of other states in the whole betting.
That's pretty uncommon
area.
for our home state. I think from a tax stand, I mean, this is a really cool opportunity in terms of additional revenue for the state. I think it's also kind of putting us on the map as a cool place to drive through and maybe stay. It's
Yeah.
really taking wind, and I'm kind of impressed we responded so quickly.
Yeah.
It might be a stretch to call it an amenity, but to Katie's point, it's refreshing that Indiana would take the lead on something like this.
Yeah.
Because you would have expected them to maybe be one of the last states to adopt it, but they're actually one of the first.
Yeah. As you look at, when you talk about sports, and as you were talking about that, I started thinking about strategies the communities have taken on. Westfield, for example, with their youth sports initiative, that continues to be, it seems to be a successful strategy working up in Westfield with what they have going on there.
It is. I was actually there for a hearing last week, and at their council meeting, they spent a half hour talking about that strategy, how successful it has been, that they've got some of the bond payoffs happening more quickly. So I think financially it's working out, but also just from a sports standpoint, how many people have come to Indiana over the last 5 years and say, I know Indiana because my child plays in the travel
Right.
team and they're at Grand Park.
Yeah. Final question back on the whole workforce issue as it relates to manufacturing. Do you sense that is becoming, kind of an Achilles heel in some respects for Indiana? I mean, other states are facing the same challenge, right? This whole worker shortage issue. Do you think it could prevent Indiana from maybe landing some economic development deals?
Well, I mean, I think on the gargantuan deals like Amazon, that type of thing, but
Right.
I really don't think we're different. It is a problem across the country, and when we have clients asking for help with site selection, it's not like there's this magical city somewhere that,
Right.
there's no problem. It's just a pervasive problem across the country, and I think it will correct when the economy changes.
Yeah, give you the final word on
I
that, Tim.
think we continue to play to our strengths and point out that we might have labor issues, but every market does, and
Yeah.
we'll work through it.
Lots of great content as always. Tim Cook and Katie Culp, thank you for being here, and we'll look forward to having you on the next show.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Gary.
And we'll be right back right after this. Stay with us.